Hello friends, welcome to the HFY Ode, where we bring you new science fiction stories, a new world, a new adventure. And yes, there is no robotic or AI voices here, only real human voices with real human touch. So let's start this journey, and please subscribe my channel if you like the stories and press the bell icon for the latest updates. Let's have a story. Okay.
The log does not lie. I have repeated this phrase to myself 11,423 times over the course of my career as a log keeper. It is the first thing they teach us in the Catharn Observational Corps. Emotion is a variable. Variables corrupt data. The log does not lie. I was thinking about this as I sat in my observation post above the crucible, watching the orbital's lights flicker against the neutron star's endless pulse. The star's beams cut through the viewing port every 1.4 seconds, like a metronome made of radiation and fury. I had been stationed here for 6 standard years, monitoring cadet performance for the Frontier Defense Coalition. It was not a glamorous posting. It was not even a necessary posting, if I am being honest. The Crucible produced soldiers, not scientists. My reports went into an archive that no one read. Until today. My data slate chimed with a priority transmission from Central Command. I opened it, expecting a reassignment notice or a budget cut. Instead, I found a single line of text. Cadet Elena Vasquez, human. Score, 101000. Validate or countermand within 72 standard hours. I stared at the number for a full minute. The neutron star pulsed 42 times before I blinked. The Crucible's entrance examination is designed to be impossible to complete perfectly. It has 200 questions across 14 categories: tactical reasoning, survival engineering, xenopsychology, pressure tolerance, ethical triage, and 9 others designed to break the psyche of anyone who attempts to game the system. The highest score in the previous 200 years was 978, achieved by a Vel subspecies with 4 independent neural cores. That cadet had required medical rehabilitation for 6 months afterward. 1,000 meant no wrong answers, not a single miscalculation, not one hesitation. I pulled up Cadet Vasquez's file. Her image appeared on my slate, a young human female, 19 standard years old, with dark hair pulled into a severe knot and eyes that did not smile even when her mouth did. Her file listed her homeworld as none refugee status. Her species of origin, human. Her psychological profile contained a single word that made my throat ridges tighten. Resilient. In Catharn psychological evaluations, resilient is never a compliment. It means the subject has endured something that should have broken them, and instead learned to mimic functionality so effectively that even trained observers cannot tell the difference. It means the damage is there, but it has been buried under layers of survival instinct so thick that no one can find the original wound. I closed the file and keyed my communicator. Logkeeper Vethnor to command, requesting full access to Crucible exam recordings for Cadet Vasquez, Elena. Reason: validation of anomalous score. The response came 3 seconds later. Access granted, transmitting now. The log does not lie, I told myself again, and then I began to watch. The exam recordings spanned 47 hours. I watched them at double speed, then at half speed, then frame by frame during the sections that made no sense. She did not cheat. That became clear within the first 6 hours. Cheating requires collaboration or external data sources. She had neither. Her isolation chamber was sealed. Her neural sensors showed no unauthorized activity. She simply answered every question correctly, with an average response time of 1.2 seconds per question. But that was not what disturbed me. What disturbed me was question 94. Question 94 is known informally among Crucible instructors as the mother's choice. It presents a scenario. A civilian transport ship is failing. You have time to evacuate exactly 2 of the 5 people on board. The 5 people are: a child with a curable disease, an elderly scientist who holds the key to a planetary famine cure, a pregnant soldier, a convicted war criminal who claims to have changed, your own sibling. The correct answer, according to the Crucible's ethical algorithm, is the pregnant soldier and the scientist. Maximum future utility. The cadet is then graded on how quickly they arrive at this answer and how much emotional distress they display while doing so. Most cadets take between 4 and 7 minutes to answer. Many cry, some vomit. A few refuse to answer entirely and are disqualified. Elena Vasquez answered in 4 seconds. 4 seconds. Not enough time to consciously weigh the options. Not enough time to feel anything. She selected the soldier and the scientist, then moved to the next question without changing her breathing rate. I rewound that section 11 times. Her vitals showed no spike in cortisol, no increase in heart rate, no dilation of pupils. It was as if she had answered a question about the weather. I summoned her training instructors. Instructor Thrake was a Catharn like me, older, with scarred throat ridges from a training accident 30 years ago. He had taught survival engineering at the Crucible for 2 decades. He did not like humans. He did not like me asking questions. Cadet Vasquez, he said, his vocal sac deflating with irritation. She is not the strongest human we have trained, not the fastest, not the smartest. I have seen better marksmanship, better physical conditioning, better tactical theory. Then why did she score 1,000? I asked. Thrake was silent for a long moment. Then he said something that made my throat ridges tighten again. Because she never panics. I have watched her patch a hull breach during a simulated decompression while 3 other cadets were screaming. She did not rush. She did not tremble. She said, and I quote, "The patch needs 30 seconds to bond. If you are going to scream, do it away from my work area." He leaned closer to my recording device. There is something wrong with that girl, logkeeper. I do not mean medically, I mean fundamentally. She does not react like a living creature. She reacts like a machine that has been told to pretend to be alive. I recommended psychological discharge 6 months ago. Command denied it. Why? Because she is useful. When there is a crisis, she solves it. When other cadets break down, she carries their work. Command sees a weapon. I see a wound that never healed properly. He left. I sat alone with the neutron star's pulse and thought about what he had said. The log does not lie, but logs only record what is visible. Thrake had given me his observation. Now I needed the truth. I accessed Elena Vasquez's full personnel file, including the restricted sections that required logkeeper clearance. Her homeworld status was not refugee, none by accident. Her species of origin was listed as human, cull survivor lineage. The cull. I had heard whispers of the cull. Every species in the frontier had. A human separatist cult that believed mercy was killing flawed humans before they could suffer. They had operated in secret for generations, targeting children with treatable illnesses, adults with manageable disabilities, anyone who did not meet their impossible standard of perfect health. The coalition had classified them as a terrorist organization 80 years ago, but the cull did not bomb buildings. They took children from hospitals. They injected imperfect infants with air bubbles. They called it love. Elena Vasquez's grandmother had been a cull survivor. Her mother had been born in a refugee camp. There was no father listed. I closed the file and keyed my communicator again. Logkeeper Vethnor to Cadet Vasquez, Elena. Report to observation post 7 for psychological validation. This is a direct order. The response came 11 seconds later. Her voice was calm, too calm. Acknowledged, estimated arrival 14 minutes. I turned off the recording and waited. The neutron star pulsed. The log did not lie, but I was beginning to suspect that Elena Vasquez did not need to lie. She had found a different way to hide the truth. She had become the truth. She arrived in 12 minutes, not 14. I noted this. Precision was not a flaw, but precision that ignored estimated arrival times was a deliberate statement. She was telling me, without words, that she had controlled the variable. She had chosen to arrive early. "Enter," I said. The door slid open. She stepped inside and stood at attention. Her uniform was immaculate. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Her eyes scanned the room in a pattern I recognized. Threat assessment, 3 exits, 1 window, 1 potential weapon on my desk, a data slate not dangerous. 1 potential weapon on her person, none per Crucible rules. She had completed the assessment in less than 2 seconds. "Cadet Vasquez," I said, "do you know why you are here?" "You believe I cheated on the entrance examination," she replied. No hesitation, no emotion in her voice. "I did not. You will not find evidence because there is none." I did not say I believed you cheated. "You did not need to. You requested my psychological file. You interviewed Instructor Thrake. You accessed my restricted lineage data. You are a logkeeper. Logkeepers validate anomalies. I am an anomaly." I felt my throat ridges tighten for the 3rd time that day. She had reconstructed my entire investigation from a single summons. That was not intelligence. That was paranoia so refined it had become prophecy. "Sit down," I said. She sat, her posture did not relax. Her hands remained visible on her knees. Eye contact maintained, breathing slow and even. "I am going to ask you questions," I said. "You will answer truthfully. I have authorization to administer Catharn Veritas serum. You may consent or refuse. Refusal will be noted in your file." "I consent," she said immediately. "I have nothing to hide. I have simply survived things that most people cannot imagine. There is no shame in that." I removed a small vial from my locked cabinet. The Veritas serum was clear, odorless, and worked on all known coalition species by temporarily suppressing the brain's ability to construct false narratives. It did not force truth-telling. It simply made lying impossible. The subject could refuse to answer, but they could not invent. She extended her arm without being asked. I injected the serum into her radial artery. She watched the needle enter her skin without flinching. "Begin," she said. "Question 1. What is the worst thing that has ever happened to you?" She did not hesitate. The serum was already working. Her pupils dilated slightly. "Watching my uncle die when I was 7 years old. He had a limp from a childhood injury. The cull came to our camp at night. They said he was imperfect and that keeping him alive was cruelty. They injected him with potassium chloride while my grandmother held his hand. She told him to close his eyes. He did. I watched. My hand trembled. I steadied it. Did you cry? No. Why not? Because crying was attention. Attention got you noticed. Notice got you killed. My grandmother taught me that when I was 4 years old. She said, Alina, the cull do not take children who are invisible. Be small, be quiet, be nothing they want to look at. Question 2. How did you survive? I was invisible. My uncle was not. He had a limp. He could not hide it. I had no visible flaws. I was small and quiet, and I did exactly what I was told. When the cull came, I hid under the floor. My grandmother built a false panel under the sleeping mat. I fit. I stayed there for 3 days after they left. I did not make a sound. Question 3. What is your earliest memory? She was silent for 7 seconds, the longest hesitation so far. My grandmother teaching me a game, she called it worse. The rules are simple. Whenever something bad happens, you name something worse. After you name something worse, the first thing does not seem as bad. You keep going until you cannot think of anything worse. Then you stop. Then you breathe. Then you survive. Give me an example. When I was 5 years old, I broke my arm. It hurt. I started to cry. My grandmother said, worse. I said, what? She said, your mother broke her arm when she was 5. She was alone. There was no one to help her set the bone. It healed wrong. She cannot straighten it today. Worse. I stopped crying. My arm still hurt. But it was not the worst thing that had happened to someone I loved. So I survived. Question 4. Did your grandmother love you? Her eyes did not change, but her hands moved. A micro-twitch. Her fingers pressed into her knees. I do not know. She kept me alive. That is not the same thing. Question 5. Do you feel fear? Yes. When did you last feel it? 20 minutes ago, when you summoned me. I did not know if you recall. The coalition has been infiltrated before. Her answer hit me like a physical blow. She had walked into my observation post believing I might be a terrorist sent to kill her. She had done it anyway. She had arrived early. She had stood at attention. She had let me inject her with an unknown serum. Why did you come if you thought I might be Cull? Because if I refused, you would have sent armed guards. If I ran, I would have confirmed suspicion. The only way to survive is to walk toward the threat and see if it kills you. That is what my grandmother taught me. Never run from a closed door, Alina. Walk. If it opens, you face what is inside. If it stays closed, you find another door. I sat back. The neutron star pulsed behind me. Her face was illuminated in regular bursts of hard radiation light. Question 6. What do you want? I want the Cull gone. Every last one of them. I want to be the door they walk toward. I want to watch them realize that they created exactly what they feared. A human who cannot be threatened. Because they killed your uncle. Because they taught me that death is mercy. And then they stayed alive. Every Cull member who is still breathing is a hypocrite. They kill children to save them from suffering. But they do not kill themselves. Why? Because they do not believe their own philosophy. They are not merciful. They are cowards who enjoy killing. Her voice had not risen. Her breathing had not changed. But the serum was recording truth, and the truth was that Alina Vasquez was not cold. She was frozen. There is a difference. Cold can be warmed. Frozen must be thawed slowly or it shatters. Final question. Why did you score 1,000 on the entrance examination? Because nothing on that exam was worse than things I have already survived. A hull breach, worse. My mother gave birth in a camp without medical supplies. She almost died. A tactical dilemma, worse. My grandmother chose which of her children to hide and which to send away. She never saw 2 of them again. Ethical triage, worse. I watched a Cull member decide that my uncle's limp was a death sentence. He decided in 3 seconds. I answered in 4. He was faster. I am still learning. She stopped. The serum was wearing off. Her pupils returned to normal size. Any more questions, logkeeper? I had many, but I did not ask them, because I realized that every question I asked would lead to the same place. Not trauma, not pain, something worse. Clarity. She had looked at the worst things the universe could offer and decided at 7 years old that the only way to survive was to stop being surprised by horror. She had not numbed herself. She had cataloged everything, every death, every choice, every moment where someone could have helped and did not. She carried it all, not as a burden, as a logbook. The log does not lie. She had become a log. I offered her a choice. It was not in my protocol. It was not authorized, but I offered it anyway. Cadet Vasquez, you have 2 options. First, I can recommend you for immediate discharge and reassignment to a safe posting. Medical supply depot, planetary defense, somewhere far from combat. You will never have to make another ethical triage decision. You will survive. You might even learn to feel something other than calculation. What is the second option? There is a task force, special operations. Their mission is to locate and dismantle remaining Cull cells. They have been hunting for 15 years. They have captured exactly 3 Cull members in that time. They need someone who understands how the Cull thinks. Someone who can walk toward a closed door and not flinch. You are offering me a hunting license. I am offering you a choice. Safety or purpose, survival or justice, you cannot have both. She stood up, her hands were steady, her eyes were dry. "I owe them a limp," she said. "I do not understand." "My uncle had a limp. He died because of it. I do not have a limp, but I have something else. I have a grandmother who taught me a game called Worse. I have a mother who survived a camp. I have a memory of hiding under a floor for 3 days while killers walked above me. That is my limp. It is just inside where no one can see it, but it is there, and I am going to show it to every cult member I find." She looked at me. For the first time, something flickered in her eyes, not warmth, not sadness, recognition. "I choose the task force, Logkeeper. I have been hunting them my whole life. Now I will do it with better weapons." I nodded. I filed the paperwork. I falsified her psychological evaluation to say fit for duty, no anomalies. It was the first lie I had ever told in my career as a logkeeper. The log does not lie, but some truths are too dangerous to write down. I filed my report 7 hours before the deadline. It was not the report command wanted. They wanted proof of cheating. They wanted a reason to expel her. A perfect score from a refugee human with no pedigree threatened the Academy's reputation. It was easier to believe she had broken the rules than to believe she had simply endured more than any other cadet. I gave them neither. This is what I wrote. LOGKEPER report subject. Cadet VASQEZ, ELENA human. Classification. Restricted LOGKEPER eyes only. Summary. Subject scored 1,1000 on Crucible entrance examination. No evidence of cheating found. Subject's performance is attributable to extreme psychological conditioning resulting from prolonged exposure to cult terrorist organization during formative years. Findings. Subject does not lack emotion. Subject has learned to process emotion faster than baseline species norm due to survival necessity. In situations where most species experience panic, cortisol spike, decision paralysis, fight-flight-freeze response, subject experiences a conditioned response she describes as the worst game, an immediate comparative analysis that reframes present threat as less severe than past trauma. This is not a healthy coping mechanism. This is not a sustainable psychological state. This is a survival adaptation that will eventually fail if subject is not provided with appropriate therapeutic support. However, the Crucible does not train healthy soldiers. It trains effective soldiers. Subject is the most effective cadet I have observed in 6 standard years. She does not freeze. She does not hesitate. She does not need to be told twice. Recommendation: do not discharge, do not promote, do not celebrate. Assign subject to Cull Hunting Task Force Sigma 7. Let her do what she was trained to do since birth. Then, when the war is over, assign the best therapists the coalition can afford. It will take decades. It may not work, but it is the only ethical option available. Closing statement: the log does not lie. Subject Vasquez is not a weapon. She is a wound that learned to walk. Be careful where you point her. Submitted by Logkeeper Vethnor, Katharn Observational Corps. Status: resubmit with revised recommendation or face censure. Command rejected my report within 4 hours. The attached message was brief and hostile. Logkeeper Vethnor, your emotional attachment to this cadet is affecting your judgment. Resubmit with recommendation for discharge or we will file a fitness review. Commandant Errol. I did not resubmit. Instead, I submitted a second report. It contained 2 sentences. Cadet Vasquez is fit for duty. No further action required. They accepted it within an hour. That is how the coalition works. They do not want the truth. They want paperwork that does not cause problems. I gave them paperwork. Elena Vasquez gave them something else. She gave them results. 6 months later, I was no longer stationed at the Crucible. Command had reassigned me to a data archive on a minor orbital, punishment for my insubordinate reporting. I did not mind. The archive was quiet. No neutron star pulse. No cadets screaming in simulated hull breaches. Just records, just logs, just the truth buried where no one would read it. Then my data slate chimed. Priority transmission, Task Force Sigma 7. I opened it. Mission report, Task Force Sigma 7. Operation, Silent Door. Date, 8734-2 Standard. Lead, Cadet Field Promoted, Vasquez Alina. Summary, Task Force located Cull Safe House on abandoned mining station. Sector 14G3 Cull leadership targets confirmed present, including cell leader Mother Ashford. Wanted for 127 confirmed infant deaths. Standard breach and clear protocols assessed and rejected due to civilian hostages. Alternative protocol, Lead Vasquez requested solo infiltration. Request granted. Execution, Lead Vasquez approached safe house unarmed. Identified herself as a survivor who wants to understand. Cull members allowed her entry, believing she was a potential recruit. Lead Vasquez spent 2 hours in conversation with Mother Ashford. During this conversation, she obtained verbal confirmation of 47 previously unsolved Cull operations. When Mother Ashford asked Lead Vasquez why she had come, Lead Vasquez responded as follows, audio recording attached, transcription below. You taught me that death is mercy. You killed my uncle because he had a limp. You said it was kindness. You said he would suffer less. You were so convinced that you were right that you never asked yourself the obvious question. Mother Ashford, what question? Lead Vasquez, if death is mercy, why are you still alive? Outcome, Mother Ashford experienced a complete psychological collapse. She confessed to all charges. The 2 additional Cull leaders surrendered without resistance. 7 civilian hostages rescued unharmed. No shots fired. Casualties, 0. Commendations requested. Field promotion to permanent status for Lead Vasquez. Psychiatric evaluation for Mother Ashford. Recommend maximum security facility. Submitted by Task Force Sigma 7 Command. Status, approved, pending LOGKEPR review. I read the report 3 times. No shots fired. No violence. She walked into a room full of people who had killed children, talked to them for 2 hours and walked out with confessions. Not because she threatened them, because she asked a question they could not answer. If death is mercy, why are you still alive? The Cull had spent generations telling themselves they were saviors. They killed the weak to spare them, but they never applied that mercy to themselves. They aged. They got sick. They developed disabilities, and every time they found an excuse to keep breathing. Alina Vasquez had not broken them with a weapon. She had broken them with a mirror. I attached my own report to the file. LOGKEPR Addendum Subject Field Operative VASQEZ ELENA. Classification Permanent Restriction Do Not Archive Publicly. I was wrong about Cadet Vasquez. She is not a wound that learned to walk. She is a scar that learned to talk. There is a difference. A wound is open. It can be infected. It can be reopened, but a scar is finished. It is not healed. Healed means back to original condition. A scar is not original. A scar is new tissue that grew where the old tissue died. It is tougher. It is less sensitive. It is uglier, but it does not bleed. Alina Vasquez does not bleed anymore. She bled out a long time ago. What is left is the scar, and scars are useful. They remind you what almost killed you. They protect what is underneath. The Cull created her. They made a child hide under a floor for 3 days. They made a girl learn a game called Worse. They made a teenager who could answer ethical triage questions in 4 seconds without flinching. And now she is hunting them, not with hatred. Hatred is warm. Hatred burns out. She is hunting them with something colder. Certainty. She knows they are wrong because she lived through their mercy. She knows mercy is not killing people who suffer. Mercy is sitting next to someone who is suffering and not leaving. Her grandmother understood that. Her grandmother did not kill her when things got hard. Her grandmother built a false panel under a sleeping mat and taught her to be small and quiet and survive. That is love. It is not gentle. It does not look like the songs, but it is love. The Cull never understood that. They thought love was preventing suffering. They killed children to save them from a broken arm or a limp or a disease that could have been treated. They never sat next to anyone. They never held a hand and said, "Worse." They just injected and left. Elena Vasquez is going to show them what they missed. Not with lectures, not with revenge, with survival. She is going to keep breathing long after every Cull member is dead or in prison. She is going to live, and every day she lives, she will be proof that they were wrong. That is her weapon, not a gun, not a ship, just a girl who refuses to die out of spite. Closing statement. The highest score in Academy history did not come from genius. It did not come from training. It came from a 7-year-old girl who hid under a floor while her uncle died above her and decided, in that moment, that she would never be too scared to move again. The log does not lie. But today I wish I had never opened her file. Not because she is dangerous, because now I know what a scar looks like when it is still growing, and I cannot unsee it. Final status, Operative Vasquez, Elena, approved for permanent assignment to Task Force Sigma-7. Recommend regular psychiatric evaluation. Recommend no media attention. Recommend everyone leave her alone and let her do her job. She has been carrying this since she was 4 years old. She does not need our help. She does not need our pity. She just needs doors to walk through. And the Cull left plenty of those behind. End of report. Logged by Logkeeper Vethnor, retired unofficial. Final entry. I closed my data slate. The archive orbital was silent. No neutron star pulse. No cadets, just rows of logs waiting for someone to read them. No one would read this one. That was fine. Some truths are not meant to be shared. Some truths are just meant to be recorded. Elena Vasquez would never know I wrote this. She would never know that a cold-blooded Catharn logkeeper spent 6 months thinking about a human girl who learned to breathe inside a room that was already on fire. But I would know. And the log does not lie. So I will leave this here in the dark where no one will find it. One record among billions, a scar on a server. Proof that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is not a weapon. It is a survivor who has nothing left to lose.